sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, strap in, everyone. We're diving headfirst into the early buzz surrounding Captain America, Brave New World.
Definitely gonna need those helmets on for this one.
We're sifting through those first reactions, courtesy of comicbookmovie.com, really trying to figure out, is this going to be the Marvel movie we've all been waiting for? You with me?
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, the reactions we've got are all over the place. Not your usual simple thumbs up or thumbs down.
Oh, really? So what are we talking? What's got people talking?
Some pretty interesting observations about how Brave New World ties into past MCU movies.
See, that's what caught my eye, too.
Yeah.
A few critics are saying that this new film, it picks up threads from The Incredible Hulk from way back in 2008, and even Eternals.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which, let's be honest, those weren't exactly fan favorites for everyone.
No, not at all.
So what could this mean for Brave New World? Is it trying to fix past mistakes, or are we looking at, like, a super intricate narrative tapestry?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a bold move to try and, well, retroactively improve on films that maybe didn't quite hit the mark with audiences the first time around.
Right.
Kind of reminds me of what they attempted with Thor, Love and Thunder.
Right.
Injecting humor into a storyline that, well, perhaps it wasn't the best fit. And we all saw how that one turned out.
Yeah, not quite as well as they'd hoped, I guess.
Right.
So potentially risky territory they're treading here.
It seems so.
And speaking of risky, we got to talk about those reshoots. I mean, a few touch-ups here and there, that's one thing, but with Brave New World, there's a lot of buzz about just how extensive they were. So should we be reading between the lines here? Are these reshoots a giant red flag? Like, are there deeper problems with the movie we should be worried about?
Reshoots are pretty common in the MCU. I mean, they happen all the time. But the sheer number of them for Brave New World, that does make you wonder. What were they trying to fix? Was it just polishing up some rough edges, or was there like a major shift in direction? It's hard to say for sure. Sometimes, extensive reshoots can actually be a good thing. Take Rogue One, a Star Wars story, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
They did a ton of reshoots for that one, and it turned out pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I loved that one.
So it all really depends on what they were going for and how well they pulled it off.
Okay, so some potential red flags waving, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
We are talking about Captain America here, and if there's one thing the critics seem to agree on, it's that Anthony Mackie absolutely nails it as the new Cap.
Oh, for sure. He's incredible.
I saw one critic even said, and this is a direct quote, Anthony Mackie fills Chris Evans' shoes seamlessly as Captain America. No one is more deserving to hold the shield than Sam Wilson. Now that's high praise.
It is. And, it's crucial for this movie to solidify Sam Wilson as Captain America, especially after Falcon and the Winter Soldier didn't exactly win everyone over.
Yeah, it had its moments.
Yeah, it did. But, Avengers. Doomsday is on the horizon, and Sam needs to step into that leadership role, confidently. And this positive feedback on Mackie's performance, that's a really good sign. Suggests they might actually pull this off. This whole passing of the torch thing.
You've got a great point there. The success of this movie, it really could hinge on how well they establish Sam as Cap.
It really could.
But let's shift gears a bit. Some early reactions are hinting that this movie might be going for a more politically charged narrative than we're used to seeing from Marvel.
Oh, interesting.
So what's the vibe? Are we talking full-on social commentary, or is it more subtle?
From what I've gathered, the critics are definitely picking up on a more politically and socially conscious tone. Like, the movie seems to be engaging with some pretty heavy themes. Things like power and responsibility and what it means to be a symbol of hope in a world that's, well, let's face it, increasingly divided.
Yeah.
It could be a risky move, honestly. I mean, it might alienate some viewers, but then again, it might also attract a whole new audience, people looking for something with, a little more depth.
That's a really interesting observation. Are you thinking this could be Marvel's attempt to evolve their storytelling, go beyond just the spectacle and delve into some more complex issues?
Possibly. They've been criticized in the past for being a bit formulaic, sticking to a certain pattern.
Yeah.
So this could be their way of addressing those criticisms and offering something a little more thought-provoking. They've dipped their toes into social commentary before, sure, but this might be, a full-on cannonball into the deep end.
Okay, so we've got these potentially politically charged themes. Sam Wilson stepping up as Cap and all these connections to previous films. Definitely a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely, we're just getting started.
All right, sounds like we need to take a deeper dive into all of this. We'll be back in a flash with even more insights into Captain America. Brave New World. Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back, and we're really digging into these Captain America Brave New World reactions. And one thing that keeps popping up is this whole idea of legacy.
Yeah, it's not just about Sam taking on the shield. You know. Critics are pointing out that the movie really digs into what Captain America represents.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean in a world that's, well, let's be honest, grappling with some pretty heavy stuff?
It's like, can this symbol from the past, can it still inspire people today?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a question of relevance, you know?
Totally. Okay, so we've got this legacy thing going on, the potential for some serious political stuff. It sounds like Marvel's trying to do something a little more, I don't know, meaningful than your typical superhero flick.
Yeah, maybe. And that's where those connections to The Incredible Hulk and Eternals, those become really interesting. I mean, both of those films, they kind of dealt with the consequences of power. You know, like what happens when heroic actions have unintended consequences?
Right.
And it seems like Brave New World might be trying to weave those themes into a bigger conversation about responsibility, about what it really means to be a symbol, especially in a world that's, well, complicated.
I see what you mean. It's like they're building on those earlier films, maybe even trying to redeem them a little bit, showing how those stories, they still matter today.
Right.
But isn't there a risk that the movie gets bogged down, you know? Like trying to connect all these different threads from the past might end up overshadowing the story they're trying to tell now.
There's always that risk, yeah. I mean, remember what happened with Spider-Man? No Way Home. It was a huge hit. Everyone loved it. But some people felt like it was too focused on fan service. Too many nostalgic callbacks.
Yeah.
And maybe the story suffered a little because of it.
Yeah, I get that.
Brave New World, it needs to find that balance. You know? It needs to honor those past stories, sure, but it can't let them take over. This is Sam Wilson's story, and that needs to be front and center.
You make a great point. It can't just be a bunch of cameos and references to the past. It needs to stand on its own 2 feet. And speaking of standing on 2 feet, what about the action? I mean, it wouldn't be a Captain America movie without some epic fight scenes.
Well, absolutely. And from what I'm reading, the action sequences in Brave New World, they sound pretty amazing.
Okay, good.
One critic even described a scene where Sam's facing off against this whole group of enemies, right? And it's in this crumbling cityscape. And he's using his shield, but he's also using those incredible aerial skills he developed as Falcon. Apparently, it's a real visual treat.
Okay, that does sound pretty awesome. But I gotta ask, is it just mindless spectacle? You know? Like, we've seen plenty of superhero movies with amazing action, but they're kind of hollow. Does it sound like the action in this movie, does it actually serve the story, or is it just there for the wow factor?
That's where the director, Julius Ona, comes in. You know? From what I've gathered, he's not just going for big explosions and flashy moves. He's using the action to show Sam's growth as a hero. Like, you see his strategic thinking, his resourcefulness, his commitment to protecting people. It sounds like the action, it's designed to reveal character, not just, you know, bombard the audience with CGI.
That's good to hear. It's all about balance, right? You need the thrills, but you also need those moments that make you really connect with the characters. But what about the villain? What can you tell us about the bad guy Sam's up against?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about Tim Blake Nelson. He's coming back as Samuel Stearns, also known as the leader. You might remember him from The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, yeah, vaguely.
And apparently, he's undergone some pretty significant enhancements since then.
Enhancements?
Yeah, he's become a real intellectual threat to Sam, like a serious mental challenge.
So it's not just a physical fight for Sam. It's a battle of wits, too.
Exactly. It sounds like the leader's a master manipulator, you know, plays mind games, exploits weaknesses, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Which creates a really interesting conflict because it forces Sam to not only rely on his physical abilities, but also his intelligence, his emotional intelligence. You know, Sam's not Steve Rogers. He doesn't have the same level of experience or that unwavering moral compass. He's going to have to find his own way to defeat a villain as crafty as a leader.
Okay, this is getting good. We've got legacy, political intrigue, action that actually means something, and a villain who's a real threat on multiple levels. But with all that going on, I have to ask, is there concern that the movie's trying to do too much? Like, will it be able to handle all of these different elements without becoming, a big mess?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to juggle all these storylines, these complex themes, the character arcs, it can get messy for sure.
Yeah.
It all comes down to execution, If Brave New World can pull it off, if it can weave all these different threads together, it has the potential to be something truly special.
Yeah.
But if it stumbles, well, it could end up feeling overstuffed, lacking focus.
Right. Fingers crossed they stick the landing then.
Definitely.
All right, so we're on the edge of our seats here. High stakes, big potential, but still a few questions about whether Brave New World can deliver on all of it. What do you think?
Well, that's what we're going to find out in part 3. We're going to dig into some of the more critical reactions and really try to figure out if this movie lives up to the hype or if it falls short.
Okay, so we've talked about the good stuff. Anthony Mackie as Cap, the action, those potential political themes. But it's time to face the music. Not all the early reactions are glowing. Some critics, they've pointed out a few things that, well, might make us hit the pause button.
Yeah, one thing that keeps coming up is the supporting cast. With so many characters, especially those tied to the Incredible Hulk and Eternals, there's this worry that some might feel, underdeveloped.
Like they're just kind of thrown in there.
Exactly. It's a classic superhero movie problem. Right?
Yeah.
You want to have this huge ensemble cast, but you also want to make sure each character gets their moment to shine.
It's a tough balance to strike. And those reshoots, those extensive reshoots we talked about earlier, some critics think they might have messed with the pacing of the film. Like maybe they cut down on some important character moments to make room for more action or plot.
This is possible, yeah.
So instead of a nice, smooth, cohesive story, we might end up with something that feels a bit, choppy.
Maybe, yeah. And that brings us to another point of contention. How the movie handles those politically charged themes. Some critics, they loved it. They praised the film for tackling these complex social issues. But others, they felt it was a little heavy-handed.
Like they were hitting us over the head with the message.
Right, exactly. And it's tricky, right? You want to engage with these relevant themes, but you don't want to alienate viewers or come across as preachy.
It's a fine line, that's for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's this feeling that the movie might be trying to juggle a few too many thematic balls in the air. Legacy, social commentary, personal growth, all those connections to the MCU.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is, even for a 2.5-hour superhero epic. So maybe not the masterpiece some were hoping for.
Yeah.
But hey, let's not jump to conclusions just yet. These are just early reactions, remember?
Right. Opinions can change once we see the whole thing.
Exactly. And even the more critical reactions, they still acknowledge the film's strengths. Like Anthony Mackie's performance, those incredible action sequences, and the fact that it's at least trying to do something different,
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the big question, the one we've all been waiting for, does Brave New World live up to the hype?
Well, that's for you, the listener, to decide. What are your expectations for a Captain America film? What are you looking for? Pure escapism? A thought-provoking exploration of social issues? Or maybe something in between?
We've laid it all out for you. The good, the bad, and the potentially messy. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Is Brave New World going to be your new favorite Marvel movie?
Here's something to think about, though. We've talked about legacy, responsibility, the challenges of being a symbol in a complicated world. But what does it even mean to be Captain America in this day and age?
Ooh, good question.
Does it mean upholding the ideals of the past or forging a new path for the future?
That's deep, man. Maybe Brave New World will give us some answers, or at least get us asking the right questions. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. Until then, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Captain America: Brave New World.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.